So this first video here I wanted to play is Russell Brand's first time back on YouTube since all the accusations and demonetization, and he kind of explains, goes into it a little bit. Of course, you should follow him on Rumble to hear more. He talks about that. The second video I put together is from Tim Cast IRL, who, between all of them, they did a great job of breaking down how this played out, at least with the UK government. They don't go into depth or anything, there's more information coming out, but from the first video to the second video, it's good to be able to put the pieces together. And I put a third video in here of everything that has happened lately in the American government, of the government overstepping to censor on social media. And I just wanted to put these three together to make it more accessible for people to kind of put the pieces together, or to see things that are to come and what's been happening, and to easier understand, instead of if you're trying to explain it to somebody else, you kind of have to say, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. And always for me, trying to explain things like this to other people, it makes it harder having to go to different sources and put pieces together. It's easier if things like this are just in one place. So I put all these videos together with no gap in between, so you could watch them and draw your own conclusions and figure it out. But this sounds and feels and looks a lot like what the World Economic Forum, Agenda 2030, and just a lot of things been leading up to. And this is only the beginning, and it just reminds me a lot of after 9/11, where we found out that the NSA was spying on us, and everybody would say, well, I don't have anything to hide, they could spy on me. And now it's, oh, well, I don't have anything bad to say, so they should take away all the bad people. And if people think it's going to stop there, they're being very naive to think the government or everybody in charge is not going to take as much power or overstep every chance they can. But that's enough of me. Just take a look at these videos and decide for yourself.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Obviously, it's been an extraordinary and distressing week, and I thank you very much for your support and for questioning the information that you've been presented with. By now, you're probably aware that the British government have asked big tech platforms to censor our online content, and that some online platforms have complied with that request. What you may not know is that this happens in the context of the Online Safety Bill, which is a piece of UK legislation that grants sweeping surveillance and censorship powers, and it's a law that has already been passed. I also don't imagine you've heard of the Trusted News Initiative. Now, as is often the case when a word like trusted is used as part of an acronym to describe an unelected body, trust is the last thing you should be offering. The Trusted News Initiative is a collaboration between big tech and legacy media organisations to target, control, choke and shut down independent media organisations, like this one. We'll be talking about that on our show on Monday on Rumble. But just to give you an idea of what the TNI is, this is a quote from one of their spokespeople. Because the actual real rivalry now is not between the BBC and CNN globally, it's actually between all trusted news providers and digital platforms. It's clear that these organisations collaborate in constructing narratives, whether that's around the war or the pandemic, and of course there are other examples. And it's very clear to me that we have to be very, very cautious indeed. That's why I'm asking you to follow me on Rumble. Rumble have made a clear commitment to free speech, and Rumble is the primary platform that we will be streaming from. We'll be back this Monday, and as usual, we'll be talking about deep state and corporate collusion, and how ordinary democracy is anathema now, how it's shut down, ignored and avoided. We'll be talking about a military-industrial complex that is able to facilitate and start wars that seem sometimes to be little more than money laundering operations. And that's with all respect to the hundreds of thousands of victims of the numerous ongoing wars in the world at the moment. We'll be talking about the role of Big Pharma and how Big Pharma have been able to influence government policy around the world, and how they've been able to evade due liability and necessary scrutiny, how they've been able to avoid media investigation that perhaps ought be due them. And of course, we'll be talking about media corruption and censorship. So please follow me on Rumble, because that's the only way that we can keep our voice. You can go to rb.rumble.com to support me directly and keep me and our channel independent. And I need your support now more than ever, and more than I ever imagined I would. So follow me, Support our channel if you can, if it's within your means. But more important than any of that is that you please, if you can, stay free.
The conspiracy theory has been proven true in, what is this, 5 days? It's like 5 days since they accused Russell Brand and started going after all of his financials, trying to get him banned from everything. And then you get NBC and a bunch of these outlets saying conspiracy theorists think that there's an agenda against Russell Brand. And then a few days later, UK Parliament sends letters to social media platforms demanding demonetization. What did it say? Demonization? Is that demonization?
It's spelling there.
Yeah, come on, post-millennial. I always make fun of him. Demonetization of Russell Brand. But I guess demonization works too.
It's similar.
Yeah. Demonization. Although it may be politically correct and socially easier for Rumble to join a cancel culture mob, doing so would be a violation of our company's values and mission. So we have this tweet from Mario Knopfel. This is the Culture, Media, and Sports Committee of the House of Commons, sent a letter to TikTok saying, while we recognize TikTok is not the creator of the content published by Mr. Brand, and his content may be within the community guidelines set up by the platforms, we are concerned that he may be able to profit from his content on the platforms. Holy what, dude? Confirmed conspiracy against Russell Brand. I'm just really excited for this. We have a very quick confirmation of a government conspiracy against Russell Brand. Wait, hold on. Here's the Rumble tweet. Because Rumble is awesome. They of course released this with a statement saying, today we received an extremely disturbing letter from a committee chair in the UK Parliament. While Rumble obviously deplores sexual assault, rape, and all serious crimes, and believes that both alleged victims and the accused are entitled to full and serious investigation, it is vital to note that the recent allegations against Russell Brand have nothing to do with content on Rumble's platform. Just yesterday, YouTube announced that based solely on these media accusations, it was barring Mr. Brand from monetizing his video content. Rumble stands for very different values. We have devoted ourselves to the vital cause of defending a free internet, meaning an internet where no one arbitrarily dictates which ideas can or cannot be heard, or which citizens may or may not be entitled to a platform. We regard it as deeply inappropriate and dangerous that the UK Parliament would attempt to control who is allowed to speak on our platform or to earn a living from doing so. Singling out an individual and demanding his ban is even more disturbing, given the absence of any connection between the allegations and his content on Rumble. We don't agree with the behavior of many Rumble creators, but we refuse to penalize them for actions that have nothing to do with our platform. Although it may be politically and socially easier for Rumble to join a cancel culture mob, doing so would be a violation of our company's values and mission. We emphatically reject the UK Parliament's demands. And here we have this letter to Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO of Rumble, saying, I am writing concerning the serious allegations regarding Russell Brand in the context of his being a content producer on Rumble with more than 1.4 million followers. The Culture, Media, and Sports Committee is raising questions with the broadcasters and production companies who previously employed Mr. Brand to examine both the culture of the industry in the past and whether that culture still prevails today. That is to say, they have outright admitted the UK government is reaching out to other networks, asking them to remove Russell Brand and take away his income because he was accused. Allegations from a decade to 2 decades ago. This is amazing. They said, we are also looking at his use of social media, including on Rumble, where he issued his preemptive response to the accusations made against him by the Sunday Times and Channel 4 dispatches. While we recognize that Rumble is not the creator of the content published by Mr. Brand, we are concerned that he may be able to profit from his content on the platform. Think about what they're saying right here. The UK government is outright saying, if you commit any crime ever, you should not be allowed to live. At all. What does Russell Brand do for a living? He's a personality. He's an actor. He communicates. He talks. They take his shows down. They try to take his podcast down. YouTube actually demonetizes his show. They're basically saying he should not be allowed to make a living anymore for any reason, even though he's never been convicted of a crime. Or I should say, I don't know if he's been convicted of any crime, but in this instance, he's only been accused.
Well, and he hasn't even been accused on a criminal level, right? It was just the article that came out. I mean, it's a pure...
There is an investigation.
Oh, is it what? Well, but because of the article, right? Right. So, and it seems like, especially with things like YouTube, it seems like that. I mean, we're in the age of the open conspiracy, essentially, at this point, where YouTube is sitting there going, man, we really wish we could kick Russell Brand off, but we can't just do it outright. If only somebody came out with an article, nudge, nudge, hint, hint. And so they're just working in this almost reciprocal way. And I mean, Rumble says we're fighting for free speech on the internet, that age is rapidly ending. We have the EU Digital Services Act. The UK Parliament just passed the the Online Safety Bill, which ironically, when it was in draft form, was presided over by the same woman that sent this letter, Caroline Denijaj, or whatever her name is. So yeah, it's coming to an end pretty rapidly, this whole free speech thing we've been enjoying so long.
Well, I mean, this is the UK. I think we are actually, we have to remain steadfast, but I think we're doing a really good job in the US as it pertains to the boycotts and the boycotts. The fact that Rumble exists shows that we have started to push back and we're gaining ground. Russell Brand, they can't take away his money because Rumble said no. Everyone else bends the knee, but I love the precedent set by YouTube. So what? Now all anyone has to do to terminate someone's account is just accuse them or have someone accuse them?
I mean, this is all awful, sufficiently horrifying for me to be like, all right, we need to completely isolate social media from governments. This is something that we've been aware of, or the Twitter files have shown that there are governments interested in accessing the power and influence that comes from social media. To think that other governments aren't doing it with, just because the U.S. has been exposed and there's supposed to be efforts being undertaken to prevent it, doesn't mean that other countries aren't going to try to apply the same pressure. And it's for essentially the same things. They're looking to end the liberty to speak your mind and say things that are controversial. You've got that Jacinda, I forget what her last name is, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, specifically coming out and saying things that 15 years ago, if you said publicly, you'd have gotten excoriated for. You would have been thrown right into the bin with Stalin, Hitler, and all the other authoritarians, Pol Pot, whatever, all of them. And now it's looked at as something that people have become so numb to the efforts at limiting what you're allowed to say and what you can't say, that these kinds of behaviors from governments, only the alternative media seems to take issue with it. And it's a big problem. And obviously we're all pretty much here in agreement. And I'm thankful that Rumble did what they did. But this speaks to the attitude of governments. And it's not just the United States government. It's governments across the Western world.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. I think it's safe to say that all of you are here today because you are opposed to government censorship. Is that right? Have I got that broadly correct? Okay, we can agree on that much. Book banning is a form of government censorship. Is that broadly speaking correct? Professor Knox, you're an expert in this. Let me just ask you. Book banning is a problem under the First Amendment because it's the government telling private individuals, authors, what have you, what they can and cannot write, telling the public what they can and cannot read. Is that broadly speaking correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So now what if the books were digital only? Could the government ban them then? So no hard copies, no physical copies, it's just digital books. Could the government engage in book banning then under the First Amendment? No problem.
No, that's about a format of the particular book, and that really doesn't matter when it comes to whether or not government is banning a book.
Okay, what if the government made a list of authors whose books it wanted banned, and also went to all of the publishing houses in America, the government did, and said, do not publish the books by any of these authors or we will punish you? Is that a problem under the First Amendment?
My hope is that the government would not be involved in the decisions of a private company.
Good. I would hope so too, but apparently that is not the case in the United States of America today under this administration, because the hypotheticals I've just given you aren't hypotheticals at all. They've happened, and we know that they are happening. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals just ruled in a case, Missouri versus Biden. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. It's going to go down, I think, as a landmark case in the worst possible way in First Amendment law, because what the Court of Appeals found is that the White House, not just the federal government, but the White House actively coerced Every major social media platform in America, let me say that again, every major social media platform in America to ban speech that the White House did not like. What are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about speech on the COVID-19 pandemic, speech on the 2022 congressional elections, speech related to mask mandates, speech related to vaccines. What did the White House do? Well, over a period of years, they met with on a regular basis the leaders of social media companies and demanded that the speech they did not like be taken down. They further demanded that these same social media companies amplify the White House's speech. Amazing. So take down all of this speech that we don't like, amplify our own speech. Unbelievable. What kind of speech are we talking about? Well, for example, not just public officials, but parents. Here's an example from my state, the state of Missouri. I'm reading it from the opinion here. One parent who posted on Nixdoor.com, which is a site operated by Facebook, posted an online petition to encourage his school to remain mask optional, found that his posts were removed without notifying him, and his friends never saw them. Another parent in the same school district who objected to mask mandates for school children responded to Dr. Fauci on Twitter and promptly received a warning from Twitter that his account would be banned if he did not delete the tweets criticizing Dr. Fauci's approach to mask mandates. These objections, amazingly, this censorship was taken at the direct behest of the federal government, the direct behest of the Biden administration. Professor Knox, is this a violation of the First Amendment?
Only a judge can make that determination.
And a judge has. I'm glad you said that. Multiple judges. The district court, federal district court, said there was a direct First Amendment violation. Court of Appeals unanimously, 3-judge panel, unanimously said direct First Amendment violation. I can't think of another time in American history when the President of the United States, and I say that advisedly because the record reflects that White House officials were sending emails and communications to these companies saying that the President himself wanted the censorship. So you've got the government doing exactly what Professor Knox said is not permitted under the First Amendment, directly coercing the speech of private parties, and not just one or two authors, but parents all across the country. Unprecedented in the history of this nation. So I'm glad we're having this hearing today. I hope that we will have more like it to expose the censorship happening at the highest levels of our government. Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that this opinion, this judgment by the Fifth Circuit, Missouri versus Biden, be entered into the record in full.
Without objection.
I will leave it there. I know there are other Senator Kennedys here who want to ask questions, but I just want to say for the record that this kind of censorship is un-American, it is unconstitutional, and I hope it will go down as a sad chapter in American history that we can close here and now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. Senator Kennedy.